The Indiana Fever beat the Dallas Wings 102-83. This was a highly anticipated game because it was going to be the first time that Caitlin Clark and Paige Bueckers would be going up against one another in the WNBA.
In a move that's left Indiana fans fuming and the entire WNBA community asking hard questions, Dana Bonner just did something few saw coming. She doubled down. After weeks of silence, criticism, and accusations surrounding her sudden exit from the Indiana Fever, Bonner stepped in front of cameras and, without a shred of regret, told the world, "I wouldn't change a thing." You heard that right. The same player who signed a max contract with Indiana barely showed up, disappeared for 5 games under the guise of personal reasons, and then conveniently resurfaced in Phoenix is now calling it destiny. But to Fever fans, it looks a lot more like deception. The reality? Dana Bonner took over $200,000, gave back minimal effort, then played the victim. And now, instead of acknowledging any fault, she's telling us all it was just part of her journey. The question isn't whether she left Indiana, it's how she did it. Because when you follow the timeline, her disappearance, her silence, her sudden performance spike in Phoenix, it all starts to look less like coincidence and more like a plan. Coming up, we break down what really went down behind the scenes and why this betrayal is being called one of the most shameless moves in Fever history. It all began with a deal that was supposed to elevate the Indiana Fever, not expose them. Dana Bonner, a seasoned veteran, walked into Gainbridge Fieldhouse last offseason with pedigree, promises, and a paycheck that made headlines. She inked a max contract, and in return, Indiana fans expected leadership, experience, and on-court production to guide a young roster featuring rising stars like Caitlin Clark and Aaliyah Boston. The organization structured its salary cap and game plan around her presence, expecting her to be a stabilizing force, a locker room anchor. And for a moment, it looked like she embraced that role. Bonner smiled at pressers, praised the fan base, and told reporters she was excited to be part of something special. "I've never played in front of this many fans," she said, beaming. But it didn't take long for those smiles to fade. Behind the scenes, red flags started to appear. Her performance on the court didn't reflect her pay. Her energy dipped, and when the minutes got cut, the silence grew louder. The contract was hefty, but the effort felt hollow. Fans who had just bought her jersey were now watching a player who looked disengaged and disinterested. What was supposed to be a partnership built on trust and ambition slowly began to unravel. And as you'll see in the next chapter, it unraveled fast. Then came the silence. With the season just heating up and expectations mounting, Dana Bonner suddenly disappeared. No press release, no injury report, no public statement, just personal reasons. For 5 critical games, she was nowhere to be found. The team offered no details, and the media was left to speculate. Fans, many of whom had spent their hard-earned money supporting the franchise and buying Bonner's jersey, were left in the dark. And the timing couldn't have been more suspicious. Just weeks before, Bonner had been moved to the bench after underwhelming performances, averaging only 7.1 points per game while shooting bricks from beyond the arc. Her replacement, Lexie, started to thrive in her role. The writing was on the wall. But instead of responding with renewed effort or leadership, Bonner vanished. Then came the real twist. Shortly after her mysterious leave, she resurfaced not in Indiana, but in Phoenix. A new team, a new jersey, and suddenly a new Bonner. It was the move that made fans ask, was she really ever committed to the Fever? Or had this been the plan all along? Because what happened next only fueled the fire. When Dana Bonner reappeared in a Phoenix Mercury jersey, it wasn't just a trade, it was a revelation. Suddenly, she was reborn. In just her second game with Phoenix, Bonner dropped 22 points and grabbed 11 rebounds, outshining the entire narrative she left behind in Indiana. For Fever fans, it wasn't just disappointing, it was infuriating. How could someone who had seemed disengaged, disinterested, and completely out of rhythm in Indiana suddenly flip the switch like that? The timing was too convenient. Her fiancé, Alyssa Thomas, is already a cornerstone in Phoenix. And with the Mercury in desperate need of a veteran presence, it didn't take a detective to see the dots connecting. Rumors began swirling that Bonner's exit wasn't a reaction, it was a strategy. From the moment her role in Indiana began to shift, some insiders suggest Bonner had her eyes set on Phoenix. The trade wasn't random. It was the destination she wanted. The silence during her absence, the refusal to address fans, a rapid performance spike. All of it paints a picture of someone who was never fully invested in Indiana. This wasn't a breakup, it was a premeditated departure. And for those who feel betrayed, the numbers back it up. Because what she delivered in Indiana was nothing like what she unleashed in Arizona. And that raises a chilling question. Was the whole thing just a setup? Let's be brutally honest, Dana Bonner's stint in Indiana wasn't just underwhelming, it was alarming. We're not talking about a veteran adjusting to a new system. We're talking about someone who looked like they were coasting from day one. Bonner averaged just 7.1 points per game, barely cracked 3.8 rebounds, and delivered a mere 1.6 assists. Those are not the numbers of a max contract leader. They're bench stats at best. And even then, her presence barely registered. She only started 3 out of the 9 games she played, and when she did hit the floor, it looked like her effort had been left behind in another city. Fever fans weren't blind. They watched her miss open layups, brick wide open threes off the side of the backboard, and jog back on defense like the outcome didn't matter. It wasn't a slump. It was a player going through the motions. And while she may have smiled in interviews and said all the right things, her body language told another story. She didn't look frustrated, she looked uninterested. And yet, despite the lackluster stats, the fans stayed patient. They gave her time, they gave her grace, but she gave them nothing in return. And then, just like that, she was gone. Not only did she disappear, she reappeared elsewhere, playing like a completely different athlete. And that transformation says more than any stat sheet ever could. When Dana Bonner left Indiana, she didn't just walk out on a team, she walked out on a community. And for fans who had welcomed her with open arms, the backlash was swift, loud, and deeply personal. They had bought her jersey. They had defended her in comment sections. They had cheered for her during those awkward shooting slumps. And now, after watching her give minimal effort, disappear mid-season, and then suddenly thrive in Phoenix, they feel duped. This wasn't a trade. This felt like a con job. Fans flooded forums and social media with one burning question. Was any of it real? Was the commitment to Indiana real? Was the respect for the fans genuine? Or had Bonner always planned to jump ship the moment things didn't go her way? Her ESPN quote, "I wouldn't change a thing," only added fuel to the fire. To Fever supporters, that wasn't confidence, it was arrogance. Because while Bonner moved on to better performances and better surroundings, Indiana was left holding the bill. A busted salary cap, a fractured locker room, and a fan base feeling like fools forever believing. And that kind of emotional betrayal doesn't fade quickly. It lingers, it burns, and it's left many wondering how long it will take for the Fever to rebuild not just their roster, but the trust they lost. It was the quote that flipped everything on its head. In an ESPN interview that many called unbelievable, Dana Bonner uttered 7 words that now define her entire Indiana legacy. "I wouldn't change a thing." And just like that, any remaining sympathy or even curiosity vanished. To Fever fans, that single line wasn't confidence or resilience. It was a slap in the face. It was the final straw. After months of underperforming, disappearing, and re-emerging in Phoenix with renewed energy and stats that looked nothing like what she gave Indiana, Bonner's refusal to take accountability stung deeper than any missed shot or lost game. She didn't just dodge responsibility, she acted like none of it ever happened. Like she hadn't cashed checks while sitting out games. Like she hadn't fumbled her role and energy while Indiana scrambled to adjust around her. And yet, there she was, calm and composed, acting as if her exit was part of some noble journey. That journey, according to her, led her to Phoenix for a reason. But fans in Indiana know what that reason was: convenience, not calling, comfort, not commitment. And what made it worse was that her words completely ignored the trust that had been shattered. The people who defended her, supported her, rooted for her, they weren't even an afterthought. In that moment, it became clear. Dana Bonner wasn't just rewriting her narrative. She was trying to erase theirs. As the controversy around Dana Bonner exploded, there was one voice notably missing from the conversation: the Indiana Fever front office. No statement, no press conference, no effort to clarify what went wrong. And that silence, it spoke volumes. While fans were demanding answers, the organization remained tight-lipped, fueling rumors and deepening mistrust. It left the impression that the Fever either didn't know how to handle the situation, or worse, didn't want to. Bonner's departure wasn't a minor locker room issue. It was a full-blown public relations crisis. A star player, signed to a major contract, bailed mid-season, gave minimal effort, and then publicly disrespected the team and its fans. Yet the franchise let it all slide. That inaction didn't just make them look weak, it made them look complicit. And for other players watching from the sidelines, it sent a message. In Indiana, you can get what you want if you make enough noise. It raised serious questions about leadership. Who's really in charge? Who's protecting the culture? And how can the Fever expect to build something lasting around talents like Caitlin Clark and Aaliyah Boston if they can't even manage basic accountability? The front office's refusal to control the narrative left a vacuum. And in that vacuum, speculation became reality. Trust was eroded, and in its place came the growing belief that Indiana isn't just struggling on the court, but behind the scenes too. In most professions, failing to show up, under-delivering on expectations, and collecting a paycheck without putting the work would get you fired. But in Dana Bonner's case, it earned her a fresh start on her own terms. That's the core of what has fans and analysts so riled up. This wasn't just a veteran having a rough stretch. This was a calculated maneuver that highlights a dangerous shift in the culture of professional sports, where personal convenience can overshadow professional responsibility. Bonner didn't adapt, she escaped. She didn't rise to the challenge, she retreated. And the worst part? She's now being rewarded for it. Instead of owning up to a disappointing run in Indiana, she spun the narrative into a feel-good story about growth and destiny, while sidestepping the hard truth. She quit. She quit on her teammates, on the organization, and on every fan who believed she was there to lead. This wasn't a case of misfit or mismatch. This was ego over effort, entitlement over accountability. And now that she's thriving in Phoenix, with the story neatly rewritten, the message it sends to young players is chilling. Don't like your role? Check out, lay low, and wait for the reset. But in doing so, the integrity of the league takes a hit. Because when contracts become optional and leadership is negotiable, the very foundation of competition begins to crack. And Dana Bonner? She didn't just walk through that crack, she helped widen it. Dana Bonner's saga isn't just a Fever problem, it's a WNBA problem. What played out in Indiana has exposed a deeper crack in how free agency is handled across the league, and it's forcing teams and fans alike to confront a harsh reality. Trust is becoming a fragile currency. When a veteran player can secure a lucrative contract, ghost her team, tank her performance, and still land exactly where she wants with no public consequence, it sets a dangerous precedent. It tells future free agents that commitment is optional, that optics matter more than output, that personal agendas can override team loyalty if you're strategic enough. Bonner didn't just leave Indiana, she manipulated her way out, reaping the benefits without facing any organizational pushback. And that's the real problem. The Mercury rewarded her. The Fever stayed silent. The league let it slide. Meanwhile, the fans, the ones who buy the tickets with the jerseys and show up night after night, are left wondering whether their loyalty is being taken for granted. For teams trying to build something real, something lasting, that's terrifying. It undermines the entire concept of team culture. And if franchises like Indiana, who are investing in generational talents like Caitlin Clark, can't demonstrate control or protect the integrity of their locker rooms, why would any serious player trust them with their future? Bonner's departure has become a blueprint for how to exit on your own terms. And until the WNBA closes the loopholes, it won't be the last betrayal fans have to swallow.